We are going to get started with our next three-person panel. If you guys want to come up, our next panel is called A Global Approach to Vegan Advocacy. And before I introduce our next panelists, I just wanted to ask if anyone had heard why the guy working at the orange juice factory lost his job. I can already hear Jody laughing. Does anyone know why the guy at the orange juice factory lost his job? Because he couldn't concentrate. All right, so to get started, now that you're all warmed up for our global strategies for vegan advocacy, I want to introduce our next three panelists, and I'm going to introduce all three of them at once. So for time's sake, if you could hold your applause until the very end, and then they will take over from here. So our first speaker will be Dr. Melanie Joy. She is a Harvard-educated psychologist. She's a celebrated and incredibly inspiring speaker. If you have never seen her speak, you are in for an incredible treat. She's also the author of the award-winning book, Why We Love Dogs, Eat Pigs, and Wear Cows. And she also has a new book that just came out that is called Beyond Beliefs, a guide to improving relationships and communication for vegans, vegetarians, and meat eaters, something I think we could all benefit from reading. She's also the 8th recipient of the Jainology's Ahimsa Award, which has been previously awarded to Nelson Mandela and the Dalai Lama, and it was presented to her at the British House of Commons. She's given her acclaimed carnism presentation in 39 different countries, and her work has been featured in numerous media outlets worldwide. She's also the author of Strategic Action for Animals and the founder and president of Beyond Carnism. Our second speaker in this panel tonight is Tobias Leenaert, who is a blogger at Vegan Strategist. If you guys have not read this, please be sure to booknote it tonight and check it out. He is a longtime speaker and a vegan strategist. And together with Melanie Joy and others, he gives vegan advocacy trainings all over the world for the Center for Effective Vegan Advocacy. He is the author of the new book, and something you definitely need to also check out, called the How to Create a Vegan World. It's a pragmatic approach. He lives in Belgium with his partner and his 2 dogs and 6 cats, none of which are cuter than my 2 cats, sorry to say. And our third speaker on this panel tonight is Sebastian Joy. He teaches NGO management at the Berlin School of Economics and Law. He is actually all 3 of our panelists tonight are the co-founders of ProVeg. And ProVeg International, it is a pro-vegan food awareness organization with the mission to reduce global animal consumption by 50% by the year 2040. It's a pretty impressive mission, and they're going to talk about that soon. Sebastian also initiated Veggie World, the world's largest vegan fair with over 100,000 visitors each year, something that Compassion Over Killing's DC Veg Fest aspires to. He is also Europe's largest, the Veggie Fair is Europe's largest plant-based nutrition. VegMed is Europe's largest vegan fair with with plant-based nutrition called VegMed. He invented the first B12 toothpaste. Have you guys checked this out? This is a real thing. He also established an influential vegan catering training program as a vegan startup program, and through political lobbying, he has promoted the EU-wide legal definition for the terms of vegetarian and vegan. He has received several international creativity, PR, and marketing awards for his campaigns promoting veganism. Please help me welcome our next 3 speakers on this panel.
Does Bruce have the clicker?
It was here.
Is this it?
That's it.
Okay, I'm gonna make this work. There we are. Okay, so This is amazing. Like Bruce and Erica, I've been at this conference for many, many years now. Alex and I were talking about it recently, like 15 years, I think, and it's amazing to see it growing. I've been living in Germany for the past 3 years, and I get back here home every year, and I'm so excited to be here. There are few places in the world that feel more like home to me than right here in this room with all of you. So thank you guys for being you. I'm going to just talk briefly to open up for these two. I met Tobias and Sebastian, hold on, let's see if this moves forward. There we go, that's us. I met Tobias and Sebastian about the same time, approximately 5 years ago, and our shared interest in vegan strategy led us to become close colleagues and also spouses. That's Sebastian and I, actually. But Tobias is frequently in the midst of the joys, so. So tonight we're going to talk about our joint work, working to help catalyze a global vegan movement. And I'll just start out by sharing some of my experiences and perspective. So as Erica had mentioned, I've been on a speaking tour for, I think it's about 6 years now, and I've traveled to 39 countries and gotten a really interesting bird's eye view of the movement. And in these countries, I've met with vegan leaders and thousands of vegan activists and also influential non-vegans. And I've learned a few things along the way. A few issues for us to consider if we want to think about helping to catalyze a really powerful global vegan movement. And I'll share just a few of these things with you. One is that veganism is growing everywhere. Everywhere I've been, without exception. Of course, there are setbacks. Of course, there are backlashes. But whether it's South Korea, Latvia, South Africa, everywhere in the world, I hear the same thing from the leaders of the organizations, from the activists, and also from the meat eaters that I talk to, that more and more vegan restaurants are popping up, more and more vegan organizations are being developed, more and more vegan organizations are professionalizing, and there's more and more support for veganism. So that's really exciting. What that means is that what we're doing is working and we're succeeding. We're moving closer and closer to success. The other thing that I've learned also is that most vegans don't get the strategic training they need, despite all of this passion and energy they bring to the movement, despite the fact that many vegans and organizations are doing a great job. There simply isn't any formal or real formal training out there for vegans. And so this is why together Tobias and I co-founded the Center for Effective Vegan Advocacy, whose mission is to increase the impact of vegan advocacy worldwide. And we founded this just over a year ago. In the past 14 months, we've been on 4 continents, training activists and working with organizations to help empower them. And it's really, really exciting what we've seen. And the third thing that I've learned is that everywhere, a number of you were at my talk earlier today, vegans struggle with relationships and communication. And I see this actually as not simply a personal problem that causes a lot of suffering, but it's also quite an impediment to the movement as a whole. I have seen, just a tremendous amount of energy being siphoned out of the movement as vegans get drained and frustrated and despairing, having to navigate these complicated interpersonal dynamics and trying to communicate about this incredibly important issue and being met consistently with resistance and feeling silenced. And vegans, we are ambassadors for the movement. And so when we're drained from our relationships and misanthropic, we can become misanthropic and are simply less effective ambassadors for the cause. So that was what led me to write my new book, Beyond Beliefs, which Erica mentioned tonight, which I actually have here for the first time this weekend. It's actually out just for this conference, out today. And so thank you very much. So if anybody's interested, please visit our table at Beyond Cardinals, and we'll have books there, and I'll be doing another book signing on Sunday. And I think that I have taken up the full 3 minutes that I was allocated, so I'll turn the mic over now to Tobias. Thank you, guys.
Thank you. Good evening. So this is the vegan world that we're after, right? It's a bit stretched, this vegan world, but don't let that stop you. And as you know, we have quite a lot of work cut out for us. And one other constatation that we made was that if you look at other social justice movements, then in each of these movements, human rights, environment, animal rights, we have very powerful and widespread international organizations. In the vegan space, we don't have that, and that's why we founded Pro-Veg International. Let me just explain the difference between an animal rights and a vegan organization, because maybe that's not clear. So an animal rights organization will lead with the animal rights argument, or will use it almost exclusively, while a vegan organization will use that argument in addition to the other arguments like health, environment, social justice, and taste. And we think it's very important to use all these arguments together in our strategy and outreach. And let me explain you why. So if we see the Vegan Project as people climbing Mount Vegan, then one thing we can do is to increase their motivation. And we have more chances of increasing their motivation if we use all these arguments, because not everybody is convinced by the animal rights argument. Not everybody cares as yet. And I know that there's people who say that we have to always advocate for the animals, always talk about that, because that's what important. People in the end have to care about animals. And I agree, but I don't think it matters what we lead with, what is the initial argument. Let me explain that with the story of Amy Pearl, who's an American woman, and all of a sudden she developed a sudden meat allergy. She all of a sudden couldn't eat meat anymore. And the culprit was this tick, which is the Lone Star tick. And in the beginning, Amy said like, well, I'm really sad that I can't eat meat anymore, etc. And she was deploring that she was different from other people, and she wanted to be normal. But then she said, I realized that meat is bad for the environment and bad for animals. And she said, this tick made me a better person. And what is the takeaway here? It's not that Alex should like induce the stick in the Animal Rights Hall of Fame or anything, or that we should spread the stick as widely as possible, but the lesson here is that people's motivations can change, and they get into it for health reasons or for whatever, and that opens the gates, opens their heart and minds for also animal rights reasons, okay? And a second reason why we need to use all these arguments is that we not only have to motivate people to climb the mountain, but we also have to make it easier for them to climb the mountain. And that means, in this metaphor, installing like resting places and eating places and places where people can sleep. And most of the time, these amenities are installed by institutions. Institutions like governments and organizations and businesses, etc. And if we want to influence them, the animal rights argument doesn't always cut it. These people, these institutions are often more moved by health and environmental arguments. So that's another reason to use these. And the third reason is, well, here you see that tiny rectangle in the bottom right? That's the money that goes to animal rights causes. And most of that money, even within that little square, goes to, not to farmed animals, but to cats and dogs. If you compare that with the money that is invested with the prevention and the treatment of dietary-related diseases, you see that's much more. So if we can just move a little bit of that big amount of money to the promotion of vegan diets, then that would make an enormous change compared to what we have in terms of our animal rights budget. Okay, so I'm going to leave it to Sebastian to be more concrete about this. If you're interested in strategy, I've written this book available here, How to Create a Vegan World, and I explain a lot more about these topics in there. Thank you very much.
Hello, thank you very much. Well, I have good and bad news. The bad news is that I have less time than we actually planned. So I'm going to cut out all the jokes that I had. But the good news is I'm German, so my jokes are not funny anyway. Okay. So let's get started. I'm going to make it a bit more specific what Tobias said and give you a few examples of what we have done in Germany using that very specific approach that Tobias just described by framing us not as an animal rights organization but as like a general pro-veg organization. So first of all, one thing we managed to achieve is that we joined forces with the leading medical community hospital. It's kind of like the German Johns Hopkins Hospital, and we created VegMed, which has become like the largest scientific conference for a plant-based diet. There we also joined forces with a health insurance company which got so excited about the benefits of a plant-based diet after being at the conference that we now started a program in which we train students in high schools about the benefits of a plant-based diet, and this is actually being financed by a health insurance company. So as was what Tobias said, you know, we are able to channel money from other movements or from other causes into promoting a vegan diet. We also do this with environmental arguments. So for example, we convinced the German Ministry of Environment that it's in their own best interest to actually support a more plant-based diet. So they kickstarted and supported us by creating a catering training company similar to what Bruce described with what HSUS is doing. And over the last year, we had over 200 trainings in major companies like Google, Facebook, Mercedes, Siemens, and all those other companies. Again, training them how to prepare better vegan meals. Secondly, in Germany, we also worked with a culinary school. So again, you know, it's about getting the next generation of cooks involved with getting them excited about a vegan diet. I mean, who has ever eaten at a restaurant where the food was not good, the vegan one? Yes, so that's because the cooks don't get the proper training, and that's what we want to change. And we don't want to change one cook at a time. We say, okay, let's go to the biggest school, let's train the trainers, and again, we got funding from the European Commission because they were so excited with how innovative this is. They don't care about animals, but they care about innovation and all of this. So we created, like, as you can see, like material and curricula so that the next generation of German chefs is being trained with that. Yes, thank you. Next, we joined the German Climate Alliance, which is a combination of, or an alliance of more than 100 NGOs, including like WWF, Greenpeace, all environmental organizations who really care about the climate, and they draft recommendations for the government. And because we are part of the alliance, we made sure that they also cover nutrition, which they usually really like to leave out. They talk about all other issues, but not nutrition. But we really made sure that it's in there. We actually were the ones writing that article, and obviously we also made sure that it includes a really steep reduction in animal agriculture, and actually all these organizations that you see up here and the final draft of the statement, they agreed that Germany should reduce its livestock level by 50% in the upcoming years. So this is So this was quite good too. Well, yes, and then we worked, another thing what we reached out, a multiplier, is meat companies. So a few years ago, we reached out to all the to many major meat companies, and we convinced one of the major ones to actually start to develop vegetarian and vegan products, which is really good because they have the distribution network. I mean, as Bruce said, you want to make it available, you want to make it cheap, and they really know how it should taste. So they made all these, they made really great products. They actually put about $15 million in promoting those products, again, something that small vegan companies could not do. And most interestingly, what you can see here, they're selling their vegan products under the same brand as the other companies. So if you go to the supermarket, you can buy both. And even if you don't care about veganism at all, you just want to go there and you want to buy some meat product from your favorite food company, what they did here, if you actually then go home and you open it up, under the lid, it says, please try our meat-free options. So, which is pretty cool. And the good thing is, this company was so successful with the introduction, and they know that we have been working with them. So actually the organizers of the German Meat Congress, so that's kind of like, I mean, imagine like an animal rights Congress, just the other way around. So basically there were 400 most influential representatives of the German meat industry, and I was given a 45 minutes plenary slot, basically to talk about what we did with the company, and I used it basically to tell them that their business model is going to be obsolete, and they are going to end up like Blockbuster did by underestimating Netflix, and that they... And yeah, after that they said as well, we really don't like you, but you actually have a point. And I'm happy to report that actually most meat companies in Germany have developed vegan and vegetarian product lines by now, so that's really pretty good. If they have the companies, of course, we also can take them next up. We have a label where we label vegetarian and vegan products, and as you can see with the numbers of companies we're working with, we have over 400 companies now, which makes it obviously easier for vegans to find the products, and it's also another incentive for companies to create more of those products. Germans, you know, even it doesn't seem, but actually Germans also like to celebrate. I mean, you know it from Oktoberfest. So what we did is, in order to get them really excited, we created the Vegan Summerfest right in the heart of Berlin. And again, we actually convinced the city of Berlin that it's in their own best interest to have it like in the main square. It's Alexanderplatz. It's a square that's more frequented than Times Square in New York City. So it's a really frequented place, and which actually ends up that we have about 60,000 people in the 3-day event, which, at least to my knowledge, makes it the largest vegan event worldwide, which we are quite excited about. Yeah. Because it's not always sunny in Germany, we also created an indoor fair, which is more like for businesses, a trade fair. It's called Veggie World. We started about 5 years ago, and it has been so successful that we have been expanding to 16 cities by now all over Europe, creating a lot of vegan buzz for products, media, and all of that. So obviously, as you can imagine, all these activities, along with what other great NGOs, for example, like PETA and Animal Equality is also quite active in Germany, has led that Germany has become kind of like the powerhouse in Europe, at least, of the vegan movement. 1/3 of the vegan product innovations come from Germany. As you can see, the sales are skyrocketing, and you look at Happy Cow, what is the most vegan-friendliest city? You will find the German capital, Berlin. And thank you. But if you actually look at the world, you'll notice, I'll show you, I'm in America, so I'm going to show you where Germany is, so this is it. The green sign. So it's actually really quite a small country, but if you actually look at the meat consumption, we have created a map where every country is as big as its total meat consumption, then the world would actually look like this. As you can see, Germany is quite bigger by this because we have a high population density and high meat consumption. But obviously we still want to grow it internationally. So now we are going to set up, or we have started setting up pro-veg branches in neighboring countries, so like Poland, Germany, Poland, UK, France, and Spain. But obviously we want to go much, much further than that. This is just what we have planned for this year, so there are more countries coming next year. Because, as was said in the introduction, our mission is to reduce the global animal consumption by 50% by the year 2040. And one way to think about it is it's a bit like rocket science, or as easy as rocket science, is that this is the mission for the next 23 years, where we are going to use all the 5 reasons, whether it's health, whether it's the environment, to really launch this rocket out of the atmosphere, because with a mission like 4050, you can convince any environmentalist, any health expert that this is the right way to go. And once we are out of the atmosphere, it's going to be much easier to launch the second stage, which is actually where we definitely want to be later on, which is obviously a vegan world. Thank you very much.